Alright, I did not expect I'd be making this as quickly as I am. This is the Season 2 off-season roll tier list, and you're like, we just did that, but this is for patch R.1.2.65, and you can see that there are several changes in this one. Several changes in this one. So we're going to talk about all the different changes, and why some of those changes are so important right now. So let's go from the top and work away from the bottom. And I mentioned this in the last video, that Deputy probably would be making its way back up to S tier. The reason that it dropped down is because it became unique, and that has not changed really Deputy's functionality as much as I was expecting when it first came out. And after several games, yeah, most certainly Deputy still deserves S tier. I would even garner to say it might. I'm actually going to do that. Very bold right here. Actually, it might not be as bold, but for me it's bold. I'm going to put it above Jailer. I'm going to put it above Jailer. Alright, let's jump back to, I have the last tier list right beside me. So everything else the same. Deputy has now made its way back up to S tier. In the A tier, Psychic has joined the ranks. It, of course, went down. It went down to B tier on the basis of, good versus evil. That doesn't really change a whole lot with it anymore. It's still really good, and it's become very much more important than Seer, which you see has also been brought back up. And we'll get to that right now, or we'll get to that later. Coven Leader, Writ, Witch, still in A tier. Voodoo Master has taken Hexmaster's spot in B tier. Hexmaster requires a much more slower town, and these games feel a lot more dynamic, and so Hexmaster is not as useful. It is a good backup option. It is not a good plan. And so that's why Hexmaster has been brought down to B tier, and Voodoo Master has been brought back up to A tier. Alright, probably just up to A tier. I don't know if it's ever been an A tier yet until today. Speaking of B tier, though, Seer, Monarch, Crusader are the three town rules that are there. That has changed quite a bit because Socialite used to be in there, and Cleric and Vigilante used to be in there, and they're no longer in there. Seer, however, was brought up from C tier back to B tier. You could argue it's still A tier. A good Seer can get a lot of mileage out of it, but a Seer that is just meandering along cannot. Or a Seer that's unlucky. Medusa, Poisoner, Enchanter, Berserker, those all have stayed the same. We now move on to C tier. Socialite has now slotted itself at the top of C tier. I was talking about this with Dragons. A good Socialite can make it an A tier role. An bad Socialite can make it a D tier role. And so the top of C tier makes sense because most people are still not comfortable with it. Vigilante's also set at C tier. Cleric, Bodyguard, Investigator. So, Investigator's been brought up to C tier. The option of perceiving is very useful right now because Coven can do so much, and you need to see which Coven is on the playing field. Necromancer, Jinx, Serial Killer, Plague Bear, Soul Collector is a big one that's been brought up to C tier. Soul Collector just flies under the radar, and generally with the pace that the games are going right now, when Soul Collector pops, there's not a whole lot you can do. Unless you know exactly who Soul Collector is, or you get lucky. In D tier, Retributionist has fallen down there. Just not... There's a lot of games that end up where the Retri does nothing and gets lynched. Veteran's still there, Trapper's still there. Corner has been brought down quite a bit, and that is from the patch, 65 patch, where it cannot confirm itself by being tracked. Trickster has been brought up from F tier up to D tier. Finally, it's getting some love. Wilding and Illusionist. Wilding's now the second worst Coven role, in my opinion, which is crazy to think about. That, it used to be the best Coven role in the game. back at the beta releases. And then in F tier, none of this should surprise you. Arsonist is the only new addition to F tier, and that is on the basis that the games just go too fast for Arsonist. He's a bit older. It's a little too fast. It's a different generation, and so he needs a little bit more time to do his bidding. Unless there's multiple of them, which, you know, just like a retirement home, a lot of slow people can do quite a bit. But Arsonist by himself is not very good. He is a little archaic. His playstyle is archaic for the current game we have. There we go. That's a good way of putting it. So that is all. I, again, did not expect to make a tier list out so quickly, but here we are. I will catch you all. Who knows? Next week might bring another patch that needs a whole nother tier list, but this is pretty solid for right now, I think. I think this will last until Season 3. Cross fingers, hope. That is all. Hope you enjoy. We'll catch you again later.